where we think God is going to show up and how God is going to function, saying that every time you think you've got your finger on it, God's always a little bit bigger than that.
This is Queer Faith, Adora LA's video storytelling project. It's a space where we will tell the stories of people on journeys of struggle and faith. Oh yeah, everyone we will interview is also a queer leader of faith, making things even more complicated.
Pastor Ashley, welcome. This is Queer Faith. So thank you for joining us. Thank you for participating.
For having me.
Of course. Would you tell us, first of all, who you are?
Sure. So I'm Pastor Ashley Dellagiacoma. I serve a congregation, a community called Kindred. We sort of lovingly refer to as the island of misfit toys. and we're a mix of everything, all trying to share a table together. So Kindred gathers primarily as a dinner church for worship.
In the questions that we had sent out, we asked, what does queer mean to you, and how is that represented in Kindred's community?
I'm a straight ally, and so I'm always learning. Every time I feel like I'm on top of it, I learn something new. And so queer to me means the subversion of expectations. And I think that's really different than defying expectations, because that has sort of an implicit, like there's a norm that you're like bucking in order to be who you are. And I think this idea of subversion says that the expectations maybe were misplaced, and that it's not just outside the expectations, but it's changing what the expectations should be. And I'm really grateful for a friend and mentor of mine, Pastor Chris, who reframed for me the gospel as something that is queering the world, right? Like as a verb, queer as a verb, right? That it is this force that is subverting the expectations of the world, changing what we expect to see, where we think God is going to show up and how God is going to function, saying that every time you think you've got your finger on it, God's always a little bit bigger than that.
Yeah, we're always evolving. We're always transitioning into something, and those expectations continue to change. And I think that is wonderful, allowing people to like come into themselves, and that the world realizes that there's nothing wrong with who we are, but more just like understanding us. How do you feel about your role there?
I feel a little awkward, honestly, as like a straight ally trying to be a figurehead for a community that has a queer identity so much at the heart of who it is. Obviously, like you mentioned, it's not all of who we are. And I think that was really important for us to identify and name when we were being born as Kindred. So I think I always feel a little bit awkward as an ally, sort of like up front and in sort of the spotlight of a community like that. And I think that's a good default reaction. I think it's good to be uncomfortable with that. So I just make sure that I surround myself with as diverse a people as I can that represent the fullness of who we are as a church community, right? So I'm both uncomfortable being the leader of that kind of a group, and yet I think we need more allies who are comfortable in that kind of a setting, right? Like that this isn't a queer issue. We walk in tandem, and that we need allies who will speak up.
It allows you to always kind of like be mindful of that this isn't a lived experience, but it's more of something that you care about. What are some of your excitements with working with queer people of faith and like POC people?
I'm so humbled, I think, by the spiritual maturity that I find, because whether they wanted to or not, they've had to wrestle with faith and with religion and with people who think they're speaking in the name of God. We all wrestle with things of faith and ideologies and with our identities. I think everyone does, but not in such a public way, not in such a communal way, I think, as the LGBTQ community does. And so I just see a lot of wisdom in that, and that challenges me to grow and to become more mature in my faith. And I see this growing energy, like the tide is changing a little bit. And so I just feel this hope that the way that it always was isn't the way it always will be.
How do you feel encouraged on your journey of faith and struggle?
Every time I kind of just am exhausted or physically or emotionally, and I'm just ready to kind of throw in the towel, and it all just seems like, gosh, that Holy Spirit, she just wiggles in to like conversations and relationships, and even in the mess of it, you'll get this like glimpse of beauty. I think just those little moments of seeing a child share a table with a trans woman of color living on the street and says, oh, here, like, can you pass me the rolls? Just like, you would on a Tuesday or something.
It's like you see those interactions, and that's how they grow up, understanding that beautiful being that brought all of us to being.
Yeah.
And has this.
And they'll just take that for granted.
Yeah.
That's who the church is.
What can you share with people of color on their faith journey to help them along?
Their village is bigger than they think. Just your people are out there and they love you, and gosh, the world needs to see who you are and to experience who God has created you to be. We were talking about the word queer and what it means and queer faith, and you were talking about how we're always evolving. And I think more than just evolving, I think we're discovering who we always were. We were discovering parts of God that we had missed before. And so the world needs the peace of God that resides in you. Like I need that peace of God that I wouldn't have otherwise seen.
Before we get off, can you let everyone know how to contact you or find out more information about Kindred?
Sure. Our website, if you still do websites, is kindredmontrose.org.
And with that, we say thank you and we love you. Bye.
Thank you. Love you guys.